holiday special.
I think we should get going.
Should we just jump in? Is that
like
we've never done this?
I mean, we have.
We know
every episode,
but not like this.
No, but we have like every episode.
But we haven't done this.
So give me your best Scooby-Doo impression.
Oh, what?
Do it.
This is unprecedented.
Give me it. Give me your best Scooby-Doo.
No, we can't use this for the podcast.
Yes, we can. It's April Fool's Day. We can do whatever we want. That's the rule. Zoink, Scoob!
Like Scoob!
Oh! I am Derek.
I'm Isaac.
Wait, no, I'm Isaac.
I'm Derek.
There it is.
This is how I sound. I'm Derek.
And this is how I sound. I'm Isaac.
That's exactly how we sound to each other.
Happy April Fool's Day, everyone.
April Fools. We April Fools, you guys. You came here for the worst of the worst. Joke's on you.
Is that the thing people do? Like, Happy April Fool's Day? I don't think I've ever actually heard that.
I think that's like a cruel thing they say after they do an April Fool's prank on someone.
Like, hey, I broke your foot. April Fool's.
I mean, there's that bit in SpongeBob, right, where he pulls a pretty bad April Fool's joke and he's like crumpled in a heap on the ground. The dude's above him and just goes, April Fool's, you jerk. Like,
that's right.
It seems like it's always a sarcastic thing. I don't think anyone is ever genuinely wishing someone a happy April Fool's.
Yeah, it's kind of terrible.
Because why would you? It's all about the pranks.
So here at That Was Horrorble
Incorporated,
we watch bad horror movies, right?
That's how know us. You know it, you love it. That's our usual formula.
Yeah. We were trying to figure out a way to do April Fool's Day in a way that made sense. We tossed some ideas around. We talked about watching just like a bad movie and calling it horror.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was talking with my father-in-law, Steve. Shout out to Steve.
Love you,
and
Steve.
He was like, what if you guys just watch a good movie? I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Isaac, did you hear this?
What an idea.
What an idea.
I am very into that. Are you kidding me? Intentionally watching a very good horror movie for content? That's incredible.
Because we've been talking over the last few weeks. We're like, we just need to watch a good movie. Like, why not use this as a reason?
That is the thing about like making a podcast like this, right? It's like we are intentionally filling most of our time with just watching bad things.
Yeah.
So we needed we're going to use this episode as like a bit of a palate cleanser, right?
So we had a couple movies in mind, obviously, and then we looked at the like top rated on Rotten Tomatoes and everywhere, and
long lists of like top 100 to 250, all like different horror movies, and what is the top of all of them?
And pretty much at the top was Alien, 1979.
Alien 1979 was great,
and I would agree. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Really, that was the thing. That's why it was so easy to pick and go with, because like, oh, absolutely, that makes so much sense, right?
It really does.
I'm down with that, and you know, I've been wanting to watch this. It's been a little bit since I watched it the last time, like not an incredibly long time, but like I'm always down for a rewatch of Alien. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I've only actually seen it a couple times, and so the idea of rewatching it was good. And then, like you said, it's been a while, so what was I gonna see that I didn't remember? So we'll basically treat this like a normal episode. That being said, some spoilers here. So if you have not seen Alien 1979, this is where I will stop you.
Exactly.
Please go watch this movie.
Because I think there's a reason, you know, we've kind of done away with the spoiler alert warning in the beginning. Because like I think our whole vibe here is like, we're going to watch this so you don't have to.
Yes.
We are encouraging you to go watch this movie if you have not.
We're begging you.
Please.
Alien is a masterpiece. There's a reason people love it so much.
Yes. And we're going to do, I mean, not the best job at explaining it, right? Because like we're going to be, like most people who are listening from this point on should know enough about the plot and stuff like that, right? I think I want to just talk about like what makes it great, you know? Because we do a lot of picking apart what makes a movie bad and why. So this is kind of the opposite way there. So like, if this is your first introduction to Alien, it might not be the most accurate. I'm just going to gush about it.
Yeah, we really will. And so like you'll get the general idea of the plot if you haven't seen it before or if you're trying to remember. But it's definitely not a way to experience the film. And there will be spoilers for the plot. So like, you don't want to learn those now. So we're going to jump in like we normally do with some facts.
Give me the facts.
Give the facts. All right. Alien 1979, directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon. And Ronald Shusett. The Rotten Tomatoes.
Names, all of them.
I know, right? The Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 98%. Now, Isaac, I think that might be our highest one.
I think probably you're right.
I think I'm about 68%.
It's close. I wouldn't call it a landslide win, but it's close there.
It's a close one. The audience score is at 94%. Now, I have
shocking to me.
I've got some words to say.
Yeah, say your words. Give me your words.
Why not 6 more %? Huh?
Yeah, right? Or yeah, exactly.
Is
or like
it
7.
Scared you too much?
101,
little baby?
Maybe. Little baby.
I think only little babies reviewed this.
That sounds right, honestly.
Letterboxd is sitting at 4.3 out of 5, which if you're on Letterboxd at all, you know that everyone is brutal on there. Yeah, so 4.3 is super high.
That's pretty high.
Metacritic is at 89. IMDb is at an 8.5. So the budget for this film was initially $11 million. Now, back in 1979, that would be about $55 million today.
Wow!
And then all that being taken into consideration,
put to such great use,
right? Yeah, it was grossed between 82 and 110 million worldwide. So
incredible,
pretty good.
Yep.
Ridley Scott. I tried looking through to like figure out what to say about him, but he's just like one of the greatest directors of our time.
Really though. And he's also Sir Ridley Scott.
Oh, yes.
As I discovered
Sir
through like
Ridley
looking
Scott.
through like trivia stuff. Man's has been knighted, I guess is how you get that.
Yeah,
that's wild to
awesome.
me. There are apparently 3 Sirs involved in this. 2 of the actors and the director.
It makes sense. I think whoever was the queen at the time, they were like, I just watched Alien. Bring those people in here. I gotta Sir them all.
You know the queen loves her some aliens.
So I guess you could say Alien 8 and the queen served.
Oh no, this is terrible.
I'm gonna leave that in because that joke was so bad.
I'm cutting it out. I will figure it out somehow.
So if you don't know who Ridley Scott is, like, who are you? Just kidding. Gladiator, Blade Runner, The Martian, Thelma and Louise. He just came out with The Last Duel. Like, he is all over the place. One of the greatest directors of our time.
Throwing out bangers all over the place.
Now, you may recognize Dan O'Bannon because he was one of the main guys in Return of the Living Dead. And we did that in our second episode.
I remember that. I was like, why does that name sound familiar to me?
Yeah.
That's
so
hilarious.
I love him because he did the first Return of the Living Dead, not the sequel. And then...
What do you mean? It was a great movie.
Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett designed the creatures, and they helped write the movies. Yes. They had a lot to do with it, and that's basically all they've done, which is fine. Like, hey, you laid the groundwork for
one and done. You've done fantastic service. Thank you all.
And I'm going to throw one out to my boy H.R. Geiger, even though he was pretty messed up, for designing the creature and all that stuff, or at least inspiring it. I'm not sure on that. All right, Isaac, what are your expectations?
You want to talk about some reviews for this movie?
Oh, yeah!
Let's just give some of them. We tried to look through the Rotten Tomatoes reviews for this. There are 3 rotten ones. Yeah. And we thought maybe we could throw those ones in there. They're just idiots. They're just dumb and they're not funny. So we're not going to read them.
Yeah, I was hoping for like some funny thing like my cat got scared or something.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that would have been great. But no. So we're just going to read you some of the great reviews.
Yeah.
Like, let's see. The naturalism of the performances and the dialogue served only to accentuate the horror of the extraterrestrial game of cat and mouse by Wendy Ide.
And then Toysant Egan from Polygon says, Ridley Scott's original film remains singular in its perfect synthesis of horror, mystery, and anti-capitalist subtext.
Yep. Jeff Miller says, the filmmakers have come up with some images that are the sheerest nightmare. The film earns its shudders honestly. Scott is too talented to need gratuitousness as an aid. Which, yes, absolutely.
And then Derek on Letterboxd, not me, I swear,
that's
said,
funny.
It's a testament. It's a testament to our society that this movie about a cat is so popular.
See, those are the kinds of reviews I wanted. That's what I want, yeah. So that's the kind of movie that we're going into here. So what are our expectations of the movie? So I started out, it's kind of hard to give your expectations of a movie you have seen, you know you enjoy. Mm-hmm. So I just thought, I won't remember as much as I think I will, and it'll probably be coming back to me as it comes along. I figured there's going to be some incredible monster delay in this one. It's kind of one of the ones that set the groundwork for a lot of hiding your creature, that reticence of it in later movies, you know. I thought I'd just look on some fun practical effects and their greatness, because this one's got some killer makeup stuff and puppetry and all that kind of stuff and suits. A great ensemble is what I was expecting, because they have such a good... I don't remember being very annoyed by any of the characters from the movie. And then finally, just killer final girl. Yeah. Ridley Scott, Sigourney Weaver, come on. What about you?
Scary. Scary was my first one with an exclamation mark. Like, I was really looking forward to a movie that would actually make me feel tense, even if I'd seen it before. So much of a breath of fresh air from the last few movies we had watched. Like, nothing bad with watching bad horror movies, obviously, because we love doing it. But I was really excited to just kind of take a breath of what is out there, what can be done.
Take such a hearty breath, too.
And get ready for the rest of my life of horror movies that are bad, which is, wonderful. The incredible practical effects I was expecting, but I was also maybe expecting some outdated CGI effects or CG effects. It is a 44-year-old movie,
Crazy.
So what do you expect? And then I was also wondering if my opinion had changed. Do I like it more? Do I like it less? So kind of had an open mind going in. All right, let's jump into the movie.
I'm going to start out right now and say this because it's going to itch at my brain if I don't say it right now. In space, no one can hear you in space. Which is solely based on a meme I found online of somebody who allegedly bought a shirt for the poster of Alien, and the original title is Alien, in space, no one can hear you scream. And then they got it through wish.com or something like that, and they get a shirt that says Alan, in space, no one can hear you in space.
I love it so much.
And it's great, and I definitely bought that shirt because it's hilarious. It's one of my favorite shirts.
I'll tell you, since we decided to watch Alien, Isaac has said that to me at least 4 times a day.
So I just had to get it out of the way so we can get through the rest of the podcast. Is that so hard?
I'm glad you did it. Can we just talk about the credit sequence at the beginning of this movie?
Just the slow burn of the title screen is genius, slowly giving you each part of the letter to spell out Alien. It's such a simple title that works so well for so many reasons, right? It's a verb, it's a noun. I love it.
It's so cool. And it's starting off the movie with so much tension. Because you're sitting down in the movie theater. I always imagine, I've done this my whole life, I imagine sitting down in a movie theater that you don't know what you're there to see.
Yes.
And you have to wait until the title sequence to find out the name of the movie. So no one ever does that. But I imagine it from that perspective, right? And the way this did it, the way it built tension by making each section of the letter appear.
And only backed by the incredible sound effects and sound mixing that were already setting the tone. It was so eerie and appropriate. I was telling Derek halfway through watching this movie, one word to perfectly describe what this movie does so well is just atmosphere.
Yes.
It just has such a great way of putting you in this space. You feel there with them and everything that is going on. And space is fucking scary. If you can
really
do it right.
is, yeah.
And this movie really helps you feel that in a lot of different ways. It just helps you feel the fear of that. Because I feel there are a lot of other movies where it just takes place in space and that's just supposed to be scary on its own.
Yeah.
But I feel it takes a very good team of people to make space feel scary.
And it does in this.
Because naturally
sure.
it is.
It shows you these big planets and very dark atmosphere, like we were just saying. And then you see the ship, the Nostromo.
Yeah, which looks incredible. That is how you do a spaceship.
Yes.
Not like in
4,
Leprechaun.
take notes.
Leprechaun 4, go to bed. Go to jail. That spaceship was garbage. This is how you do it. They look absolutely incredible. Right from the start, you know exactly what kind of movie you're getting into. This is not some budget horror movie or anything like that. This is a movie where you see this incredible ship, then you get inside the ship, and it takes its time showing you every set that is going to be of importance, just going through all of these different rooms on this space station, the Nostromo, and the set design is just miraculous. This is we're living through this whole world, and we're just walking through it. It is a world that exists and is lived in, and there are people currently living in it. It is a living, breathing world that is so great, and there's nobody on screen.
No,
there's nothing. You don't see anybody yet. They're all in cryo, which you find out in a minute, but it's just an empty space station at that moment, but it feels so alive.
It does. It feels lived in. It feels experienced. So yeah, the first little bit of the movie is this tension build up. Then you get inside the ship and some alarms start going off. There's a distress signal coming from somewhere, and the ship wakes up the passengers in cryo. Yep,
exactly. And I found out going into cryo is one of Derek's worst fears.
Okay, it's terrifying. Just think about it. Imagine you trip and fall into your freezer, okay, which happens to people all the time.
You're right, because I'm going to get flash frozen in my freezer.
It's going to happen.
Next to my chicken and my mozzarella sticks.
It's going to happen. There's going to be some pies in there from years ago. You're going to lay next to them. You're going to fall asleep, because obviously.
Right.
And then you're going to wake up
I fall asleep. Absolutely.
in 80 years, and your family's gone, no one's around, aliens have taken over the earth.
See, that's where I'd be cool, except aliens are there now, and that's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It's just scary, okay?
Yeah. But they make Cryo look kind of comfy.
Yeah,
like,
they did.
Like,
Those
I want
pods
a
look
deep
nice.
sleep like that. Like,
Yes.
the first man that wakes up, he's waking up like he's a new man. I can't imagine what it's like to wake up from Cryo. Like, that kind of slumber must be insane.
One thing
But
I
also
noticed.
terrifying.
One thing I noticed in this section that I wrote down. It's interesting to see effects that used to be popular that aren't popular anymore. Like we were watching Lord of the Rings the other day, and it was using slow motion more than you see nowadays, and it was kind of cheesy for that reason.
Yeah, it's a little outdated now.
And there was an effect that was happening when they were all waking up during Cryo, where there was the shots of some people standing up, and then it would fade out over other shots, and it would kind of be fading in and out, where they would they would expose a new image over the top. And it was really interesting to see that, because now, like, you only see that in really low budget, cheesy films. And it was interesting to be watching this very revered movie and seeing a shot so amateur, honestly. But we only look at it that way now. Back then, that was really cool. It was really cool.
I didn't even thought about that. I thought it was, I hadn't really paid much attention to that. But you're right. Yeah, absolutely. You meet all of the members of this ship, which there's like 7 of them, I think. And like within the first 30 seconds of any of them being on screen, they feel so fleshed out and just like whole, complete characters that like know who they are and have no questions about it. They all fit. Their relationships and their roles aboard the ship are just so naturally told to us. We don't hear anything about them for a while. Just the way they all interact with each other, their like off the cuff dialogue with each other just fits so well that like it is such a strong ensemble for this movie.
Absolutely. And it's not like over sexualized. We don't have a bunch of characters that are just like, haha, I'm a banger.
Yeah, exactly. Right? There's not like there are some men who have like shitty things about them, but it's not like their only quality of them, right?
It's not the thing to make us not like them or anything, right? We care about these people for one reason or another.
So yeah, they wake up. The main guy in charge of the ship, his name is Dallas, like the ship's captain. He goes into one of my favorite sets in the movie, which is basically this control room with the computer hive mind called Mother. And it looks so cool. It's just like it's this completely like white room. It kind of looks like the Cerebro chamber from X-Men, right? But a much smaller scale. And there's like these cool lights all over every single wall in there. I love all of the space tech that was designed for this movie. Like even to get in there, he has to put in like this weird, like, holographic looking like weird disc thing into the wall to pull this other thing to open the door at the end of the hallway. That's just like, I want to know how much like time and work went into like just designing the random space sci-fi bullshit tech that's all over, because it looks so good and so like well thought out. And I'm like, I feel like this stuff could conceivably work. It's not even just because it looks cool, but space tech is complicated. It looks cool. I wrote Nostromo is a cool name. I like that name for the ship.
I mean, it is, and by now it's iconic.
At this point, I literally wrote, writing notes for this one is going to be hard. Just because I'm enjoying the movie, I have to like force myself to look down at my computer like, no, I have to write notes about this, but it's so good.
And it was at this point that I kind of decided to try and take an objective view of it, to find things that maybe haven't aged super well, which is obviously what I've been talking about. And still look at it as a movie that I love to death. Because like you commented on the Cerebro room where Mother lives, I think it's so funny in these old movies where they have like these huge technology, because that's how big computers were, right? And then like the way that they perceive the future is like bigger computers or smaller computers, which is technically true,
right? And
then like they would always press like 20 buttons to do one thing. Like that's one thing I like about like Star Trek and stuff. They would press like 20 buttons, one thing would happen. And I really think it would be fun to see in 40 years from now when we look back and we're like, wow, that technology guess about 40 years from now was way wrong.
That's really
funny.
What I mean? Because you'd imagine in the future you want more ease of use, right? So like I would like to put in less keystrokes in order to make something happen, right?
But I feel like a lot of these like 70s, 80s movies, even up to the 90s, they were like, no. We want complicated. We have to show that these people know what they're doing. Yep. Let's have them stare at a wall and push like 40 buttons, and then something will happen.
So yeah, basically, you find out that there is some kind of distress signal that has been picked up, right? As Derek has mentioned. So they were pulled out of cryo sleep early, right? They're about 10 months from home, I think is how far they are. So then they're told about the distress signal. Some of them are pretty pissed about it, but they're like, it's technically part of our contract. To go find this out, right? You know, like we have to go check out this distress signal. So then they go check it out. Every other note I'm writing about like how much the design of the tech is so amazing, and I love it so much. There's something really eerie about how slow the ship moves in the shots where we can see it moving through space. It gives you the same effect as if you like drop something into water and you're watching it float away. Like that's how it felt. Because like that's something that's scary to me sometimes, like that the deepness of the ocean and stuff like that. Just like imagining being on something that large and so slow with something extraterrestrial is like so terrifying to me.
It absolutely is.
There's one part where they're looking at something on the computer. It definitely looked like the album cover to Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures on the computer.
I don't think I've actually seen that album cover.
You've definitely seen it like on someone's shirt. It's like very much like, oh yeah, you're a cool douchey music guy because you have this little like wave effect art on someone's shirt, right? Joy Division, you're cool. That's basically it.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
But it looked kind of funny. But yeah, so they go on their way. They disembark to go to this like planet, I guess is what it's on, where they found this distress signal. And they can't figure out what it is. They're like, it sounds like maybe it's an SOS. It's just like, what, every 12 seconds they keep getting the same little ping kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that now they're on the planet. They damage themselves while trying to land.
And they have such, and this is what this started a couple notes about this. Like, they have such realistic reactions to things. Nobody is like overreacting to the fact that the ship has been damaged and stuff. I love how they're fucking tired when there's a big problem that comes up. All of them are sitting there looking exasperated, like, I don't want to deal with fixing the ship. This is going to be a whole thing, you know? They're not all panicking. What if we're never going to make it home or anything? They're just giving honest reactions like real people would the entire time, and I love that. Well, because that's like how I would react if a problem were to come up to me like that. I'd be like, God damn.
Well, and we're led to believe, I mean, not more than led to believe, they tell us that they were just on like a mining expedition and they're escorting all this stuff back to Earth, right? So you really feel that in these performances, though. You feel like they have been busy. Yeah. They are tired. They want to go back to
And also,
cryo.
they are out of their depths, right? It's like, we're not here to do this kind of stuff.
No, they're all engineers and stuff. They don't want to be here. And, like, they even argue about even going after the distress signal. Right. They're like, no, we have to do it. One of the guys, Ash, is really, really, really pushing for it. He's like, no, we got to go check it out. It's part of our code or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And they put on some really cool looking spacesuits that just look so great.
They look so cool. Why don't our spacesuits look like that?
We need cooler spacesuits, I think.
Let's catch up.
And I don't know how they do it, but somehow they manage to make everything feel scary. Even just like walking out into the windy terrain, like I felt at unease, you know? They just like, they do this great, just this way of putting you in the atmosphere of it. I love it so much.
I just glanced at Isaac's notes, and there is the word atmosphere like 10 times.
Literally, the next line that I wrote is the music, the atmosphere. It's so good. I also wrote Ripley Hare is cool, and she's just cool, and I love her.
She's just great. She's so good.
Then so on the planet, they come across this kick-ass looking spaceship that looks that's just like, already you're like, okay, that is like very much non typical American architecture of a spacecraft, right? It looks a little more rounded and stuff. It looks so cool, but definitely not of our kind, of our people. And they do. I thought this was kind of neat. They do such a good job of taking tech that should be reliable because they're in the future, right? They have like the futuristic kind of tech and making its faultiness another tool for fear. Like there were moments where like they were cutting out with the people and there was like static on the screen, and that creeped me out.
That's so creepy.
It was so cool. And like there are a lot of moments where they're walking through this like new space vessel they just found, and all you have is breathing. You just hear their breathing and like the labor of it. You can feel the fear in their voices as they're walking through this, right? They don't have to say anything. They're just breathing and you can feel it.
I wrote a note about that too, because as soon as they enter the abandoned ship, there's no music and the silence is palpable.
Like there are a couple moments where that happens too, where like I had to notice that I'm like, there's no music playing here, and I'm terrified.
It just makes your bones shiver because you're like, you get comfortable with the music. Even if the music is scaring you, it's comforting.
Yeah, and sometimes people use it as a way to like evoke that kind of fear in people, right? Especially like big jump scares in cheaper movies, right? It's like I use the music to like scare you with it, right? It's like, no, I'm going to take that away from you. I don't need that. I'm Ridley Scott.
Yeah, it's so true.
This world is just haunting. And so they come across this like xenomorph, whatever the hell it is, on this giant chair that looks terrifying. It's apparently famously known as like the space pilot. It's just a haunting looking creature. And just like the realization that these things exist within our own world and can just like shakes me to my core. Like I imagine coming across that would be just like just so terrifying. I can't put a word to that to describe how much fear that would put in me as a person.
It makes me wonder, this is one thing I noted because I wanted to discuss this. Like, do you think in this world they are used to alien life forms, or is this the first?
I think I feel like maybe there have been some, but they've never really made it back to Earth and like started to like research them and stuff. It might just be like stories about things that they've discovered. Maybe it's like a caveman thing, right? Where like they find something like a wall, like drawing on the cave walls, right? And so they know things about them. They've never actually encountered a real one like this.
That's one thing I really like about this movie throwing us into the plot, because a lot of movies we watch try and throw you into a plot, but they don't give you enough.
No.
And this is giving me just enough where I'm like, these people are acting kind of surprised about these aliens, but not to a full extent.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
it's believable.
I mean, they're in space. They've got space travel tech, so clearly there's something to be said about that, right? Like, this isn't the craziest idea to them. But you're right, yeah, I'm curious if they've encountered anything like aliens before. Sure. But at this point, Ridley decides that maybe this message was a warning and not an SOS, just because she's trying to like decrypt it and stuff. Ash is being super weird about it. They make it into the hive area of this spaceship, right? Where there's just dozens of eggs all over the place. They're cool little egg pods, and there's this really cool blue lighting effect on the smoke in the cave. It brings it up in this cool like layer, just above the eggs. And he even says like when he reaches his hand through that fog layer, like it reacts to it and stuff. And then he just like stumbles onto the
in the dumbest way.
It looks a little clumsy, like it looks like little intentionally, not like it happened accidentally. It's like, I'm gonna fall now.
There was no part of me that was like, that man just tripped on accident. He just like slipped in.
The practical egg opening made me happy though. It is disgusting. It is gross.
So gross, so slimy.
And then it's you just get a big face hugger that just hops right up on his face. And what I love about this shot is like, this is the first like what would be used as a jump scare in this movie, right? It's the first like scary bit of something. You're put on edge the whole time, and that's the first like scary payoff, I guess you could call it. What I love about it, though, is it did not immediately go into a scene where he's screaming with the thing all over his face. You get, like, maybe half of a yelp from him before it cuts. It cuts to, like, back to the spaceship, and they're talking about other stuff. And it is so much more disturbing to not know what happened after that thing clung to his face.
I love
that. Was terrifying here. But so then they try to bring him back to the ship. Ripley is absolutely not. There are quarantine rules. You cannot bring him in. You're going to infect all of us, right?
Through this whole movie, Ripley is the smartest character.
And it seems like she's the only one who has read whatever like handbook they have for this mission, because she's the only one who's recalling like, we have to follow these protocols, this isn't right, I'm the captain when they're off board, blah blah. It's so funny to me that she's like, nobody else seems to know as much as she does. She's definitely the smartest one here. But so Ash disobeys her. He opens the door for them anyway because he's like the science officer, so he's interested in it from like a research standpoint, right? He's like, we're getting this thing on board, absolutely. And it melted through his helmet, and like the look of that looks so cool, so painful. And when they take off his helmet, they have to cut it off of him with this cool laser tool. And it like, when they take off the helmet and look at the thing, it like wraps its tail around his neck tighter.
So
it's such a cool design for this thing.
Cool.
It's so nasty. And the puppet up for it is like breathing against his face. You can see like it's whatever its lungs are moving against it.
So cool.
One of the two guys who's basically like one of the two repairmen, I think his name is Parker, he just goes, how come you guys don't freeze him? I'm like, that's a great idea that would have made for a much shorter movie.
Honestly though. Or if they just left him on the planet, you know what I mean? Like just left him there and flew away.
Yeah. So then they try to cut it off of him, right? They're like, we need to get this thing off of it. And it has this crazy acidic blood that eats through like floors of this spaceship, the whole hull, like through several floors. It's insane. And they start to chase it. They're like, oh, we have to stop it. I don't understand what is their plan to stop this acid? Are you going to put it in a bucket? Guess what? It's not going to work. It's going through levels of metal. What's your plan?
And I have a theory about why they showed this scene, because I was trying to rack my mind around it. I was like, this movie's perfect. Nothing could be wrong. You know what I mean? But I think that maybe they were trying to establish how many floors there were to the ship.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Because, it definitely gives you a big depth. Because at that point, you're like, maybe it's all on one floor. Like, we've seen shots of how big the space station is. So that really shows you exactly how much of the space station they've actually built as sets, I guess. And we get to walk through.
So it was cool. Like, they chase after this acid. So it's like, you see the depth of the ship. You also see the power of the alien, too. You see what this creature can do. It has this crazy alarm system that goes off where it just leaks acid.
It's crazy. And the dude even calls it as like, it's a defense mechanism. So it's so you don't dare kill it. And that was, again, from like one of the repair guys, Parker, I think. And I'm like, that is genius. Because yes, that's exactly what that is, right? That's so smart. It's such a clever such a clever reason for it to have it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes monster things get explained in movies and it makes it so much lamer than if they just said nothing about it. But this one actually made a lot of sense and it made it really cool. And then I love the way that the camera work is used sometimes makes it feel like you have like snuck through the scenery here. You were sneakily watching these scenes as they transpire. Because there's a part where Ash is examining the alien and then you're kind of like slowly creeping up on him in the scene. And then Ripley comes in and they have a scene between each other. But it's like, I love the way that you were introduced to scenes as an audience through the camera work. It works so well. Really, it like holds you so gently and like tries to care for you in these very scary, eerie scenes, right? Where you're kind of on edge the whole time. And there's a very awkward exchange between Ash and Ripley because she's basically like, you disobeyed me. And when those two are off the ship, I am the captain here, right? And I love the realness of that scene, right? I'm like, it feels, again, such real people here. But Ash is definitely just horny for alien research, the science officer. At
this point, you're getting some definite like bad vibes from Ash. Yes. Like there's been a few things that he's done and said where you're like, you're acting kind of sus, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. They lose the face hugger.
Yes.
They've done their research, they've gone to do their own things, and then they lose the thing. And I really love when they come into the room to find it, the camera is on the floor, which is such a cool touch because it kind of puts you on the same level as where the creature could be, right? And then they find it like dangles and falls off of the ceiling and it's curled up like it's nasty, like finger. I guess you could call them fingers. They're super long, kind of looks like a crab. They're curled up like a dead spider. Yeah. And there's just such impressive craftsmanship on the facehugger prop. It looks so real. They like take it and like start to poke away at its guts that are in there. They look so authentic. It's so great.
That prop was good.
Yes.
Whatever the one they threw at Ripley to shock us was terrible.
Didn't like it?
It was like a little rubber chicken that they threw at her and she's like, oh, get this thing off me.
That is the danger of using shots like that, right? Like usually when you use it in the scene it is meant for, right? And it's kind of a stagnant prop. It works very well. But when you see how it is made of mostly rubber, it kind of loses the effect a little bit.
Did. But once it was on the floor, you're like, oh crap, this monster is awesome and gross. But yeah. So now we transition. Kane wakes up.
Kane is up.
He is doing a little better. He's got a little tummy ache.
I'm so uncomfortable with the knowledge that I have knowing Kane has a fucking alien growing inside of him, yet he's like living and breathing like he's fine.
Nope, it's gross.
It's terrifying. Like I hate knowing that is within him, but he's able to like live around that. It's so scary, honestly.
You know what movie also did this? Was Alone in the Dark. Because it had...
No. That stupid centipede in his back that got shocked is nothing like a xenomorph.
Oh,
Take it back.
Okay.
But then you get the iconic scene of them all eating food because they're about to go back into cryo because they've got 10 months until they get to Earth. And so they're like, okay, so we're gonna go, we're gonna eat a ton of food and then we're gonna go back into cryo. And so he starts eating and then he starts choking and convulsing and then he's on top of the table and then just the most iconic scene of him on the table. The chest burster bursts out from him through his shirt. Blood spurts out everywhere. And then there is just a little bit of a shot where the little baby xenomorph is running away from them, and it looks kind of silly.
It looked so dumb.
If the xenomorph had a sound effect there, it would be like hee 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 hee. As it runs, it just zooms off screen. Again, it's a little cute.
I mean, it's cute, yes. But I do think that was the limitations of the technology then, right? And like, that is what people were used to and scared of at the time because they weren't used to it. This is just another great example of something that if we saw today is very amateur. But then it was like, this is cool stuff.
Yeah, right. It fits for other movies in the 80s. You know, I'm sure it would have been done differently had it been done today. That was one of the few parts I had that I was like,
that's very few.
That's a little silly. But yeah, so then they of course have to get to work finding this creature, right? They make this like neat little tracker thing that tracks motion with it. Yep. And I really love, again, in this scene, everyone hates to be doing this. It just, it makes me realize how much I dislike how eager people can be to get to business in horror movies. Like, this is scary. It sucks. You are genuinely at risk. And who would want to throw themselves into this situation?
And their friend just exploded on the table.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, the alien exploded out of his chest, right? Like,
but I just feel like
insane.
I feel like in lesser horror movies, like the people are always like, "All right, let's get down to business. Let's get to the bottom of this and find this out." They don't want to do this. They do this purely out of necessity. They have to. And I love that. And they're beautiful shots all over the place. And there's like this use of minimal lighting throughout the entirety of the space station that really just adds to the great suspense of it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
One thing I wish that I could go back in time and experience, and I wrote imagine in big bold, because like imagine watching this for the first time in a world where it didn't exist yet.
Yep.
Like imagine sitting down in 1979 in the movie theater. I'm going to have to ask someone
I
who's
would love to
experienced
see
that.
this in theaters.
Like, but imagine not knowing what the creature looked like at the end. So you've seen the face hugger, you've seen the little chest burster guy runs away like a Muppet. And like at this point, you don't know that there's going to be anything bigger.
Yeah.
So like you're watching these people walk around and like, oh, what can this little gross worm thing do to them?
Which I think is great. I also love the fact that, again, going back to like the defense mechanism of having the acid blood, gives them a great reason to not just like shoot it.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we will bust the ship and do some irreparable damage to it, right? They have to be careful with it. So they literally go around with like a big net to catch the thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is so funny. But yeah, there's a scene where they're going through with their like tracking thing that tracks motion. They find motion in a locker, right?
Yes.
And they open the locker, and then the cat, Jones the cat, pops out of that thing. I love that bit.
I actually wrote about this. I said it's honestly genuinely one of the most funny and effective jump scare subversions ever put on film.
Really, though.
Because you're expecting something terrifying. You really are. And at this point, you've only seen a couple glimpses of the cat. So what else could it be?
Exactly. You really kind of forget that the cat is there. It's really not in your mind at this moment because you're on the brain is clearly the xenomorph that is running around the station right now, right? So you think that's what's in there. What else could it be? Oh, right. There's a cat.
It's a literal description of Schrodinger's cat. Or Schrodinger's alien.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
if they didn't open the locker, they would have never known. It could have been an alien, could have been a cat. Yep. Maybe it would have been a different movie if that was the case. There's a shot where, so basically, I think it's Brett is his name. Brett is the one, I might be wrong. Brett is the one that has the net, and he's the one that let the cat escape. And they're mad at him because they're like, dude, if you let the cat go, then there's reason to believe that we'll catch it on our motion sensor thing again, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just pretty funny. So he goes to go get the cat. And there's a weirdly long shot of him taking like a little shower. Yeah. He finds a strange set. This is the only set that I kind of questioned in the movie, where it's like, again, there are chains hanging from the ceiling for some reason, and there's just like water dripping down from the ceiling. There's like I'd say like 16-second shot of Brett like basking in this water that is just dripping onto his face, taking a nice little shower. It looked very nice, but why is that happening? And this is another scene where I noticed there is no music playing.
I wrote about that too. Yep.
No music playing. As he's basically getting snuck up on by this creature while he's looking for Jones, the cat. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, what a beautiful way to show us just enough of the creature to feel like there's been a decent amount of payoff, but leaves so much mystery still to the creature as a whole. Because basically the thing pops down behind him, and you don't really see much of his kill. He just screams and like the camera cuts away again. But I really love how we just see bits of it. You see it come down behind him. You see a shot of like the side of its face, a bit of its body, and like a good shot of its mouth. But you don't see it as a whole, and I love that because I think you can really throw away the fear of a monster by showing too much at once.
Oh, yeah.
Like, monsters need to be mysterious, and you need to keep that air of mystery throughout the whole thing. Because I often feel like that's the case. Once I get further into a movie and we finally see the monster in all of its glory, it becomes just a bit less scary to me because I'm not curious. I don't have any mystery around it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And there are movies that do a very poor job of that, but this movie does so good at keeping you intrigued in this thing. And especially since now it's huge. It was a little baby a second ago. So it's like, what else can this thing do? If it's done that much in like 10 minutes, what else? What's next?
Yeah, give me a game of Hangman where I'm guessing things and every once in a while a new body part appears.
Yes.
You know what I mean? By the end of the movie,
I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong.
The end of the movie, I want to lose and see the full creature. You know what I mean?
So yeah, now we're down another team member here on the ship.
And right before he died, I was like, Isaac, what is this guy's name? I don't remember his name. And he's like, last name Dead, first name Bowderby.
Bowderby Dead. Because you know. The scoring in this movie is wonderful. It's just so good. Beautiful. Mother, their computer's generally unhelpful. They try to go and ask her questions. They're like, does not compute. Sorry, I'm Mother. And then they get a very cool looking sequence where they try to find the monster. They know it's going through like the ventilation system to get around. So there's a bit where Dallas is in the vents with a flamethrower in his hand, and it's like such a cool look. He looks like such a badass.
He really does.
And so they have to manually open some of the air vents in there, and it's like this cool circular spiral pattern
so cool.
that they open and close with, and it has this like terrifying scraping sound that is awful to listen to, but it adds so much tension. Like, it makes me uneasy even just thinking about it. But so he's like, all right, I need you to open this vent. And then it scrapes open and it goes through and they have to scrape it closed. Like, it's so cool. Such a good design that works so well. And they're just putting us uncomfortably on the edge of our seats, but it's working so well. And all the while, there's like this alarm beeping that is happening. Derek mentioned it's almost at like the rate of a heartbeat. It's so cool.
And I think it's really, really smart because, like, through this whole scene, he's walking through the air vents. It's getting more and more enclosed. You hear this beep, 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 which is exactly like your heartbeat. And it's pulsing with high strings. It's very, very masterful. And then everything stops. And when you don't hear that beeping anymore, it's like your heart is stopped.
It's terrifying.
It is so smart. It is so genius.
And it's so, like, they do such a good job of getting us in the same emotional place as the actors, as these characters in the movie too, right? Because it's, like, at that moment I felt very scared for the other members of this group, right? Because clearly Dallas is the one at risk here in the vents with the flamethrower, but all they can do is, like, wait and see what happens. They can't help if he gets in trouble. He's so far away from them that if he's gone. And it's just so scary. And there's a decent jump scare where the alien is like, they're like, it's coming after you. They lost his signal for a minute, then it comes back and they're like, it's coming, you need to get out of there. And then he turns the flamethrower behind him, and right there, like, basked in the light of the flame is the alien that just grabs him, and then it's gone. Like, it is so cool. Just a flash of it. I loved it. Cool. I literally just wrote, I feel so spooked. I love it so much.
So then after Dallas presumably dies, because we don't see him anymore, Ripley is in the computer in the mother, and she finds out what I think is one of the greatest plot twists pretty much ever. Yeah. Which is that the corporation who sent them on this mission replaced the science officer with like a 2 days notice, and they had sent him to make sure that they go to this other planet and get this alien species and bring it back to Earth.
Yes, literally it was told all other crew members are expendable. Yep. Priority 1 is getting the organism and bringing it back to Earth. So, like, no matter what the risk is. And her desperation in the scene was so great. Like, she just found out she was made expendable without her knowledge, and like her reaction to that was one of my favorites in the movie. Just like so real, so raw.
Absolutely.
Loved it. Get a great fight scene between Ash and Ripley right there because she's pissed at him. I literally kick his ass, Ripley, but then she started kicking her ass. Yeah, he kicked her ass a little bit. He's got some general weird strength there for some reason.
So they're in like the living quarters now, and Ash like pushes her down on one of the beds. He's like choking her, and it gives us a view of like one of the man's living quarters, and there's these naked women everywhere, and then one picture, just one of a bunch of frying eggs,
like a bunch of like hard-boiled eggs in the midst of all this nudity.
I don't understand,
but like at this
man's horny for eggs.
There's something about it that is like I don't understand. But also I understand.
Yeah, I get it.
Like I get it.
I won't want some fried eggs on my wall.
If I had a killer picture of some eggs and I didn't have many other things to put up on my wall, why not? Like, imagine that. I'm sure they have like very limited like magazines to pull things from for posters and stuff. So it's like, eggs, why not? It looks pretty cool.
Bunch of naked women.
Better than that,
Put it with my eggs.
Throughout their whole fight scene, you can see these like white streams running down from Ash's face. Yep. And Derek literally says, someone replaced his sweat glands with milk. It's very gross. But yeah, I literally wrote, so Parker comes in and he smashes the back of Ash's head with like a fire extinguisher or something. Ash is majorly malfunctioning and all robots run on milk, confirmed, because he's just spewing this milk all over the place.
And so at this point you do find out it's a robot. Yeah. Ash is a robot the whole time.
The effects on Cyborg Ash were so wild and unexpected. Like, I never saw that one coming, and boy did that twist pay off.
It really did.
Because like you had reasons to believe like this guy is like he knows a little more than he lets on, right? I never thought he was a robot this whole time. That was so cool.
And like it kind of like alluded to it with showing him fighting with like this superhuman strength, like pretty insane.
Right, because right out the gate you're like, why is he so strong? He doesn't look like a particularly strong man.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But so the effects on that were so cool. He is like, his head is like off kilter off to the side of it. It looks so nasty. And they do this cool bit where like they're trying to turn him back on to get some information out of him, right? So like they have a prosthetic head where they get into like the core of it and shock it with this little prod.
Yeah.
And then his hand on the table actually reacts to it, like a muscle reacting.
So
I thought that was
cool.
so neat to use, like, you know, the effects of that with the actual real hand there was so cool. They add this cool robotic effect to his voice now that he's kind of fucked up a little bit.
I did like that.
There was just one bit. So it starts off with a fake head, then it moves to his actual head because he actually speaks some lines here, right?
Yeah, which was great.
And then they unplug him because he's, you know, the worst and he has really no good information for them. He's like, oh, one last thing, I wish you luck. And then like they unplug him, whatever. And there's just a bit where the head is swapped out for the fake head. Very quick, and it made Derek laugh very
I
hard.
Stop laughing.
Just because it was so funny looking for it to like so suddenly go back to the fake head that looked kind of bad in comparison to the way the real head looked like half a second ago. It looked a bit odd, but then Parker comes back in the room and lights it up with a flamethrower, and I just wrote, yeah, burn him.
Well, and I have a whole series of notes talking about the fake prosthetic head, but I was like,
Yeah.
but then he gets the cool melting shot, and it's all worth it.
I literally
that was
wrote
really cool.
like the burning makes up for that previous note because it was so cool. And I wrote here, and we talked a little bit about this out loud to each other, like finding flaws in this movie is like finding a needle in a haystack.
It really
They're
is.
few and far between. Like we're lucky, and that's like being very picky about that because we've gotten used to doing that. Right?
And who are we to even call them flaws,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're not experts in by any means.
Absolutely
so like
not, right?
calling them flaws is more of like calling them what took us out of the experience, I guess. I think that's for me a better way to think of it. Like,
exactly.
Seeing that head wasn't necessarily bad. It was just like it took me out of it and made me laugh.
Yep. So yeah, then basically they split ways a little bit. Ripley, sorry. I get Ripley and Ridley, the director, mixed up sometimes. They're basically like, okay, we need to get off this ship. We need to get to like the escape pod. So Ripley goes to prepare things like that. And then, I can't remember. It's like Lambert is the girl's name. She's kind of forgettable, kind of.
Parker is the other one. Parker.
Kind of the weaker of the actors in the thing. It's no wonder she wasn't used a ton in the movie. She was the only one in the movie who was a little over dramatic in certain situations. But so yeah, Parker and Lambert, they go on to try to get some materials that they'll need for the trip, I guess. I don't really remember what they were grabbing exactly.
It wasn't completely obvious what they were doing. Maybe we missed a line.
But they are making actually as much noise as possible.
My goodness.
If they die, that's on them. They are making so much unnecessary noise, clambering to get these things to get out of there, you know? Like, be subtle, please. And guess what? They definitely get got by the xenomorph.
Oh, immediately. And it still showed us as little as possible.
Yes, again, we get these like great eerie kills that chill you to the bone without having to show you a lot of it, which I love so much. Right here again, I just wrote, I love the xenomorph design. It is so cool, so iconic, so original. Love it. Even though it was a man in a suit, right? And like I read a bunch when I was looking into the trivia about how like Ridley Scott wanted to do everything in his power to make it seem like it was not a man in a suit. And I think they did really well with like what they were able to pull off.
There was only a couple times that you could even tell. Like there were a couple times where you would see its arms jut out.
Yeah.
And like look
and that,
towards
it looked
someone.
very human.
It looked pretty human.
Yeah, apparently Ridley Scott really wanted to use like puppeteer and armature, like animatronic kind of stuff to use it, but the technology just like wasn't there yet at the time for what he really wanted. So yeah, they found a great actor to put in the suit and built the suit around and made it look really like insect-like in ways, and so it worked really well. So yeah, the design's just, I love it so much. There's a great use of shaky cam in this, which I didn't think I would like, actually.
No, I thought about that as well.
I was like, I think shaky cam is pretty weak and doesn't work very well, but when Ripley hears them scream because they've been attacked, she starts to run to them. And again, it is such a great way to drive the anxiety of the sequence to have the camera running with them, which I also found in the trivia. Ridley Scott was the one who worked all of those shaking cam things, just because like, I love that. There's something that helps it feel so connected and deep there, right? I wrote here too, we hardly ever see a mutilated body in the movie. And that works. I love the mystery of every death. Like, they don't need to show you a lot. You don't, like the review I read in the beginning, right? It's like, you don't need the gratuitousness of it. If you make a good movie, you don't need stuff like that.
Directors nowadays really need to go back to this. I want more of this. I mean, like Terrifier's fine, and all of these new gory movies are fine. Like the new Evil Deads they're fine, and I enjoy watching them. But there's something so special about not giving us gore,
right?
And
exactly, just like holding that back. And that's the thing too, because sometimes it works and sometimes it needs it. But I love a movie that doesn't give it to you because it doesn't have to. Like, it's not necessary. There's so much else going on. I am scared throughout this whole movie. Like, it gives me such a great feeling of that the entire time. Like, the gore is not needed. Would it be cool and would it add to the movie? Yeah, I'm sure it was. It was like, it's not necessary.
But it really didn't feel needed, and I really appreciate that.
So yeah, basically everyone is dead at this point except for Ripley and Jones the cat.
The cat, Jonesy!
Yep. So she starts a self-destruction countdown, but she then goes back on, is like, oh no, I'm stuck on here, I can't, and then she ends up, it's too late, she can't stop the countdown.
Yep.
And in this entire sequence of her stressing to get out of the ship by the time that the countdown goes off before the alien gets her, I just love the work of the camera the entire time. Yes. And I feel like the camera work should match the emotion of the scene / the emotion of the character, and this film really understands that.
It really does.
The camera work is done so well, where like in the moments where it's very still and like everything is calm, they're still on the water, like there's not much going on to be mentioned. But in these frantic scenes, there's a lot of like that shaky cam thing, just like it helps you feel and breathe with these people.
Absolutely.
And I just wrote, again, holding a bright flamethrower against the background of this space station is such an iconic look. You look like such a badass. Ripley's got her own flamethrower now. She looks so cool.
Because everything's like dark and wet. And so like seeing that flame just light up the room, so
there's something really cool about like having an empty space station. It feels like such a scary ghost town.
So creepy.
Like we've seen it inhabited, and now to see it so empty with this countdown is so eerie. And the countdown was accurate too, which feels obvious, but like I feel like that's not always the case in movies. So like
definitely
6 minutes to destruction, and then 12 minutes later in the movie it actually happens. But in this one, there's a point where it goes 1 minute to countdown, and I actually started a timer, and 1 minute later is when it blew up. Like they actually they kept time with it, which is so great. And then they give us just enough time of like, phew, we made it, before putting us back into the skepticism of whether or not they really won. Because she gets out on the escape pod, she manages to get out, the ship blows up, she's okay, she's
got Jonesy.
She's on board with Jonesy, she loves it, and you're like, oh, okay, I feel like I can breathe. That scene was real tense. But then there's like just like a seed of doubt that is planted there, where it's like, I hope everything is okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to cryo sleep about this, right?
And it's one of my favorite things in movies. I always say this, like, you didn't see a corpse. That person's not dead.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing about the xenomorph here. Like, you didn't see him.
Yeah.
How do you know he's dead?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so basically, Ripley's like, okay, well, I got a long trip ahead of me, so I'm hoping that'll get picked up on the comms of like the network that I'm from, right? And then I'm gonna go into cryo sleep. So she starts like undressing, she's getting ready to get into the bed, and then she sees it.
Yes.
It is like integrated into the wall. The wires of it like blend it. It is beautifully done.
Even though I knew it was going to be there, I did not notice it.
Yeah.
And Isaac pointed it out to me before she saw it.
You can just barely see the top, like, domey part of its shiny head. Like, it's so cool.
And it's such a smart
blends in
creature
so well
that it knew to hide here.
Yeah, exactly. It just, like, nestled itself in there to get out of, like, danger because it understood that. It's so smart. And then so she basically, like, very, very carefully backs up, gets into a closet where she can get, like, a proper, like, spacesuit on for herself. And it shows us a shot of the alien, the xenomorph, where it has that little second mouth come out. Yeah. And honestly, I think that was one of the first, like, honest shots we've got of the xenomorph's second mouth in that movie. I feel like it was used a lot more in the sequel. You didn't get a lot of that in this first movie, but I love that design. It's such a cool, like, little second eye. I love it so much. And it's just like, the Xeno is on the ship, this tiny little ship here. What the hell can you do?
What can you do?
I even really forgot how it ended at this point, and I'm like, what? Where can this go?
Yeah,
I know you make it out of here, but like, I'm so curious how it could do this. And she's using this great... I read a thing that called it a psychological crutch, where she's singing to herself.
Yes.
And there's something about that is so honest and so good. I think she even came up with it, right? Because I think I have a trivia about that later. But it's such a cool... It's so real. Everything they do feels so real. Because, like, she's probably panicking out of her mind right now. She's like, how can I stay grounded and stay cool while we're doing this? Everything is okay. The xenomorph is terrifying.
Yes. And I think that this whole sequence is, like, the perfect way to do misdirection, too. Yes. Because, like, you think it's over, you think it's fine, and then I just loved it, but I also wrote, like, even if you had to use Sigourney Weaver's nearly naked ass... You used her bum, and it's fine. Like
Derek literally said, they were distracting you with Sigourney Weaver's ass. That's what we call misdirection.
It's true, though. I just thought it was a really good scene of thinking everything's fine, and then it's absolutely not.
Yeah, she was literally getting comfortable, like physically actually doing that, right? And then only to find that is the case, right?
Yep.
So yeah, she's got the creature slowly coming towards her. It's like right on her shoulder. It is about to get her. Then she opens the I don't know, emergency door door in the back of the ship, and it gets like yanked out of there.
Yeah.
And she's just so smart because she like, even I
genius.
felt like she was like caught in the trap, you know, like, oh, you're done for your toast, Ripley. And she's like, nah, JK, I got you. No problem. So the xenomorph gets sucked out of there. Then she shoots it with a harpoon. Then it gets pulled into like the thrusters of the ship, and she just lights that thing up. It's
absolutely
such a great sequence.
It gets pulled back into the thruster, and fire comes out, and
that's really it. I just wrote Ripley is the ultimate final girl in my mind. Like, God, she's so great.
And then she says, "This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo, signing off."
It's so cool. Such a great ending.
Gave me chills. I just got chills.
I love that. Ugh, love it so much.
These are chills. You can hear them.
You want to talk about how our expectations ended up?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely my first expectation was scary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was tense. It was shocking. It was gripping. The whole time I was freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
So much of a breath of fresh air. I mean, how do I even answer that? Like, it was so much.
So wonderful.
Like, even if I hadn't been watching bad horror movies, this movie is so good.
Because that's the thing, we've even talked about that too, where like, have we like conditioned ourselves to like anything that isn't garbage, anything like 20% and lower on Rotten Tomatoes? Like, will we take anything at this point? But like, no, I think even beyond that, it's just fantastic.
This was a great movie.
Absolutely.
And the practical effects were so iconic.
Oh, they're
so good.
Like, I could go on and on about those.
Other than like, you know, the ones we talked about, the head or the little creature.
You have no idea how many notes I've skipped just gushing about the effects and the designs, and I love it so much.
And then outdated effects. There were definitely some, like when the xenomorph gets pushed out, he kind of does this weird, stupid flying thing.
In that scene, he looks very human in a suit. I will give it that. That part definitely looked a little odd. But like a lot of the things, I didn't find this out for sure. I didn't do enough research, but a lot of the shots of like the space shuttle and all that kind of shots looked like they were like models that had incredible lighting on them. I've read one thing that mentioned they were models, so I'm going to assume that was the case.
I would,
because the effects were so fantastic.
Yeah. There's no way it was CGI because of the limitations at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So like it has to have been like an honest model, which again just shows the craftsmanship of this movie is fantastic.
Absolutely. And then my final one was, if my opinion had changed, if anything, I appreciate it more.
Yeah.
It is really, really fantastic. It is how you make a horror movie.
Exactly. How you should. So my expectations, it came back to me like seeing an old friend. It's been long enough that it all felt very fresh to me. So like things still caught me sometimes. I was like, oh, that's right, he's a robot. Oh, she's not God. It was so great. So it was just a welcome embrace back into Alien, which I love so much. I could talk for hours about the use of monster delay in this movie and how perfect it is. So I will just leave it at that so this doesn't turn into a longer podcast. But it's just such
you could go for another hour on
such a great use of like not giving us enough, right? Because I feel like the Boogans did that so horribly, where it's like, just show me something. I'm sick of seeing nothing. And they do such a good job of giving you just teases before they show you the entire thing. Because really, you don't get like a full 100% shot of it until like the very end when it's on that escape shuttle, right? Yep. Like you really do not see it in its entirety, which apparently was intentional from Ridley Scott, because again, he was really worried about people thinking it was just a dude in a suit, because that's what he didn't want. So he was very intentional with the way he shot certain things, so you never see all of it at once, which I loved so much. The practical effects go even further than just the xenomorph outfit, and they were all so great, except the one ash head prosthetic, but we won't talk about that. The ensemble, again, is so well fleshed out from the very start, and I just can't really put into words how it's done. I just love their distinct characters that feel so real, that feel like they've lived entire lives up until this point, and I'm coming to them here, right?
Yeah.
Love it so much. And then the last expectation there was Ripley, final girl, forever, XOXO.
Love you, girl.
Some of my surprises were, we talked about this a bit, it's like we've conditioned ourselves to watch movies for this podcast through this critical lens, right? Like looking to find what makes movies bad and why. So for the sake of this watch, I really tried to pull out any bad moments in it, and there were truly only maybe like 2 that I could really come up with, and they were mostly excusable, you know? And again, like we're not experts, that's just our opinion on anything.
And it has been 44 years.
Exactly, and like what we've discovered through like movies that we see now, what make those bad, right? But like there were very, very few, which I love. So like it's great, even when we were trying to pick at it, like for bad things, we couldn't find any. I was surprised to see how many of the kills were done off screen, which I would have assumed would have been the other way around, but that leaves so much to the imagination. It works so well. Every death is haunting because you never see it, and you don't. It leads me to a point where I'm like, I don't want to know what happened to them. I don't want to see that. And then final surprise, it's just better than I remember. That's it. I can't say that was much of a surprise. It was wonderful.
That was basically my whole surprises section. As I just said, it is crazy to me how much it stands up, how much it holds up after all these years, how much better it is than so many other movies that have tried to pull the same things off. And it works. it
All
works.
of it works.
At the end of the day, it just
so great.
works.
Yeah, you got a verdict for it? Like, we even need it.
Phenomenal.
It's just a masterpiece of horror. It is an A++ student
good work.
in a horror school. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, April Fools, for giving us an excuse to gush about a good horror movie just the one time. Then we'll get back to your regularly scheduled terrible programming.
All right, Isaac, you pull out any trivia for us? I know it was barren.
Just a couple. I was able to really. It was like pulling teeth to get this. You should see the page of notes I have just on the trivia. I mean, they're fun. That's the thing. I have so much here just because it's so fun to me to read these things, right?
Yeah.
So let's just start. So it was conceptual artist Rob Kahn who came up with the idea that the alien should bleed acid. This came about when Dan O'Bannon ran into a wall with a screenplay in how to handle the last half of the movie, because he needed a good reason for why the crew members don't just shoot the thing and kill it, but not make it an indestructible monster that can't be killed. So like the acid blood was the idea that solved this problem, right? Which is so great. I really love that, because you're right. Because like in other movies, there's not enough reason to not just like shoot the thing up, right? But then also it's too strong if it doesn't die by bullet. So like that is the perfect like middle ground there. Like what is the perfect like a part in its armor that will make it weak, or like weak, make that so that can't happen. I loved this bit of trivia. Remember how we mentioned the blue laser lights in the hive sequence? Mm-hmm. The blue laser lights that were used in the alien ship's egg chamber were borrowed from The Who.
What?
Yeah. The band was testing out the lasers for their stage show. The band The Who.
Not Doctor Who.
No, The Who. So the band was testing out the lasers for their stage show in the soundstage next door.
What?
And so they're just like, hey, those look cool. Can we use those for a second?
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love that very much. Where did so the face hugger, the prop for that one was actually planned to be painted like a dark green originally. Oh. But Dan O'Bannon, seeing the unpainted facehugger on set and noticing how inventive its like Caucasian flesh tone color was, argued for it to remain as is. So originally that thing was actually supposed to be green, which still would have looked cool, but it's kind of, he's right. It's like disturbing the color that it ends up being.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, exactly. According to Yaphet Kotto, who played Parker in the movie, Ridley Scott told him to annoy Sigourney Weaver off camera so that there would be genuine tension between their characters, which we didn't touch on a lot, but the two of them were kind of always at odds. Kotto regretted this because he really liked Sigourney Weaver. So I have to cover this here because it is actually a hotly debated topic around the Alien movie. A lot of people hear that the sequence of the chest burster was shot in one take. They didn't tell any of the actors what was going to happen. They got this genuine reaction out of them. That is not technically true. It is partly true. There are parts about it. So the chest bursting scene was not filmed in one take. The scene was filmed twice, actually. On the first take, the chest burster didn't make it through Kane's shirt, so the crew needed to reset and shoot it again. So the failed attempt is visible in the finished film, since Ridley thought it made it look like the creature was struggling to push its way out, and it made the scene more violent. So it actually worked out. But yeah, so it wasn't done in one shot. Really, what had actually happened was they didn't tell the cast. So they did keep something secret from the cast members, right? They did not tell them they were going to be using real blood and guts in that thing. They also did not tell them it was going to spray out onto them, right? So there are reactions in it that are genuine, right? Like there were some of them that were kind of traumatized by it. I think Lambert, she actually had a panic attack after that thing happened because it was so disturbing to her. But yeah, so it wasn't actually done in one take. They did not tell anybody about it. So like there were parts of it that were true. Yeah. But yeah, so they used, I think, like animal guts loaded up into the fake chest of this thing, which according to Sigourney Weaver made the set smell terrible.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Just a bit about the alien and its design and stuff. I have a couple here. They used shredded condoms to create the tendons of the beast's jaws, which is just... How do you come up with that?
Smart, though.
That's so smart. And it was always covered in like this nasty slime, which I found out was like KY jelly.
What?
Yeah, that's what they use for all of it.
Okay.
It's a slippery beast.
H.R. Geiger wasn't like sexualized enough. Mm-hmm. You had to take
condoms and KY jelly.
That's hilarious.
It's basically a bondage suit at this point. The front face part of the alien's costume head was made from a cast of a real human skull.
Whoa.
So yeah, that design up in the front is technically, I mean, like really, if you look at it, it looks like just like a stretched out human skull. Yeah. It looks so cool. Apparently in the original design for it, also, the alien had eyes. which they decided not to go with. They're like, it looks a lot creepier if it doesn't have any of those.
Cool.
The screech of the newborn alien was voiced by an animal impersonator named Percy Edwards. He was personally requested by Ridley Scott to do the sound effect. It was recorded in one take.
Of course it was.
I loved that.
Of course it was.
So I mentioned earlier when they were doing the autopsy on the face hugger, it looked so real. They actually did use real guts. It was made using fresh shellfish, 4 oysters, and a sheep kidney to recreate the internal organs. The filming on that had to be done quickly because the organic material would go bad very fast under the studio lights. Yeah. So that scene had to be done quick. But that makes sense why it looks so nasty up in there, because there were actual things in the actual organic material. Really it was disgusting. This one makes me giggle. Dan O'Bannon's original draft title for this movie was Star Beast. Can you imagine? Imagine today we are doing a review on the movie Star Beast. It just does not have the same ring to it.
Classic Star Beast came out 2 years after Star Wars.
Fortunately, he was never happy with this. It was only after rereading his script that he noted how many times the word alien appeared, and he realized that was the perfect title. It works as a noun, as an adjective, and it had never been used before.
Yeah,
which is kind of surprising, right? It's so simple, but it covers so much ground. And again, it just doesn't, it tells you so much and so little at the same time. You know there's going to be an alien. What else? You know, like there's so much mystery around just the title, which I love. So simple, it's great.
Yeah.
For the alien's appearance on the shuttle, the escape one that they used, the set was built around, I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, Bolaji Badejo, I think.
Excuse me?
He was the actor that was put into the alien suit, right? So the set was built around him in the suit, so giving him an effective hiding place. That's why he looks so perfectly tucked in there. However, extricating himself from the hiding place proved to be more difficult than anticipated. The alien suit tore several times, and in one instance, the whole tail came off when he was trying to get out of there.
That's funny.
Sir Ridley Scott cites 3 movies as the shaping influences on this movie. There is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. There is 2001, A Space Odyssey for their depiction of outer space. And for its treatment of horror, they took it from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That is bonkers.
And that is just incredible to me. I love that so much. And it really, it reads. So then my final note here is Bolaji Badejo, who was the what am I trying to say? The actor into the, in the suit. Was a graphic artist who was discovered at a pub by one of the casting directors.
That's insane.
He was 208 centimeters tall, 6 feet, almost 10 inches tall, with very thin arms, and it was just what they needed to make the alien look less human and more insect-like. He was sent for Tai Chi and mime classes to learn how to slow down his movements. A special swing had to be constructed for him to sit down during filming, and he could not sit down on a regular chair once he was suited up because of the alien's tail, right?
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, he definitely had to go through a lot. He also did just Alien. It is his only credit, and then he disappeared. He went into anonymity. He's just gone now.
Wow.
He just came, gave us a fantastic creature, and then left.
He preferred graphic design.
But yeah, so that's he's definitely the biggest reason why, the alien works so much and they didn't have to use all the animatronics in order to make the alien prop work, which I'm sure Ridley Scott was thrilled about, That's
so cool. That's so great.
But yeah, it was just a wonderful movie.
What else do we say?
What a breath of fresh air to watch something so good in our Twist April Fool's episode here. Thanks for checking this out. It's been a great time.
I hope that if you haven't seen it before, it inspires you to go see it. If you have seen it, go rewatch it.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully after this, you want to go back and see these things that we've been gushing about, right?
We forgot.
And see, these guys, right? Derek and Isaac don't know what they're talking about. And then, yes, we do, because this movie is fantastic.
Well, in April, no one hears you, April.
Goodbye.